Good evening, everyone. How are you doing today? Welcome to another episode of Live, Love, and Marry Wizerr, where our mission is in our name. Proverbs 4:7 says, wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. And in all you're getting, get understanding. And what we do here is we pray, we plan, and we prepare every episode for you to access wisdom for your life and relationships through all of our hosts and guests who join us weekly. Today, we have a special guest who's going to help us discard some of those myths about Black women that are popular in the dating world now more than ever. So, how are you doing, Onita and Renee?
Hey, I'm doing good. It's Tuesdays. A lot better than yesterday. Thank God for Tuesdays.
Right?
Yes, thank God for Tuesday. I'm doing okay. I'm a hint under the weather,
Oh,
but I am perfectly fine. I'm glad to be here, and I'm excited about this conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited about this new backdrop that I have here.
Fancy. Fancy.
Let's say.
And it took some doing, like navigating and so I basically just said, let me try it here and see how it goes. So I'm loving it. We have a special update. And I'm gonna stay in the comments today, and I'm gonna let Heather be the producer backstage. All right. So we just want to remind you all that the book was released, Pray It Forward for Women Who Choose to Fight on Their Knees. We're going to talk a little bit about that at the end. And we have some links to give you access to some of the things that are going on with that. But things have been going well. And we are just pushing through and enjoying the community. It's not just a book that we read by ourselves, but it's a community of women who are praying together and transforming together. So I'm excited about that. But we all know what time it is now. It's time for the update. Are you ready?
Yes. Drum roll. I gotta make up a little jingle song that plays right there.
Yeah, we do. We'll add that. Okay. So I will say I have a good update this time. I mean, I guess they're all good, but some I have to make more interesting than they feel like they are. 2 weeks ago, or was that? Yeah, 2 weeks ago, we did an episode where we were trying to update. We were trying to record together live in person. I was in Richmond, and for those of you who were on that live, it went absolutely terribly from you all's perspective. So you have not yet seen that episode, but I have been informed that things are going well with the editing, and we should have that shortly. On that episode, I talked about the fact that I had spoken to a pastor, Pastor Leggett. He has a program for women, single women, but he helps married women as well. And that they are, he helps women to just make better decisions about relationships, how to kind of walk in your power, how to understand how to navigate relationships with men in a healthy way. He's very much for women. And so I really was excited about that. Well, first of all, he's going to be on our program in a couple of weeks. So I'm super excited about that. And so that will be on the 20th. But yes, the 20th. But he has this program where he works with single women. And I've heard about it before, but just kind of wasn't in the place. But now that I am in the place, I told you all that I was going to join that program. But I, had to figure out the finances and see how that would go. Well, praise God for some people who sowed some seeds into the ministry just recently. And I was able to redirect some funds. So this very day, I signed up for the program. And it's called Women's Empowerment something. And I am excited about that. So I'm going to get in contact with him and let's get this party started. So,
Okay,
so that is my update on what I am doing and how I'm going to just improve as a single woman, preparing, waiting, doing whatever I need to do to be the woman that God wants me to be for the man that he wants me to have. So thank you, Susan. Love the backdrop. Appreciate that. So I'm excited about that, and that the funds were made available, and so yeah,
that's awesome. That's awesome. We can't wait to get some updates on that, and we can't wait for him to come on here. Wow.
Yep.
That's
I'm
exciting.
excited about it. So that is the lowdown on the updates. Well, at this time,
so nobody slid into your DM since the young boy did 2 weeks ago. Well, when you went on your walk.
Yeah, that was on the walk.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to tell you that that I have canceled all of my subscriptions to the dating sites that I was on. I'm not saying I'm done with them. I'm just saying the ones that I were on, they just weren't serving me. And so now that I'm in this program, I'm going to talk to Pastor Leggett about, what I should be doing, where I should be going. I know I need to go out more because I'm not going out. I've just Pray It Forward has been super busy and I just haven't really had time to do that. But I know I need to go out more and just kind of get out in the world. But I'm going to talk to him about the online thing and just see what his thoughts are. But I still have through the rest of February with one of them. But I canceled it early so they wouldn't take any more money from me. They have not given me anything for those coins. So
yeah, I applaud you for lasting as long as you did, because my online dating experience lasted about 3 days. So you have done very well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I'm not saying I won't go back to it. I may just need to, choose differently what sites. And I mean, at the end of the day, you're only looking for one person. And so you can't pinpoint that site, or you would just go find them, but go to their house. But I just want to make the best decision around that. So I'm going to, now that I have a coach, I'm going to listen to my coach. He said, when you're in your program, you got to do everything I tell you to do. I was a little bit scared when he was saying that, but I'm just like, well, what I've been doing ain't working. So let me go ahead and listen to somebody else.
Yeah. But you even shared that when he was telling you about doing everything he said, he had receipts. He had those real life examples. So yeah, that's comforting.
Receipts. So I bought in.
That's all good signs. All good signs. So I'm excited.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the end of that update. So I just want to frame the topic. And today I'm excited because Onita is going to facilitate our conversation because she's the one who brought this awesome guest to us. On episode 40 of season, and that was in season 3, we actually have another guest, our special guest host that you all have already known, but we had my brother on here. We talked about passport brothers, and these are men who are leaving the country to go and find women in countries like the Philippines or Asia or they didn't say anything about Africa, but like Brazil and those types of places where they think that women are more, or it's true in some respects, I guess, that women are more traditional. They want to take care of their men. They want to stay home. They're not trying to get the bag and all of those things. And part of that conversation came up in the sense of that particularly Black women are more masculine, and therefore the men don't want us because they want women who are more feminine, who do feminine things, who cook and clean and all of those types of things, and are submissive. Well, after we had that conversation, when we got offline and we were talking backstage, we were just talking about the fact that all of the history around Black women and first of all of the myths, but also just the real history that has required us to take leadership in ways that we don't really want to most of the time. And Onita brought up Dr. Holly and just kind of her expertise. And so that what brings us here. We're excited to have her. And so at this time, I'm going to let Onita introduce her, and we're just going to jump into that conversation.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for passing the baton, Lorraine. It is my honor and pleasure to be here tonight with you all, and as well introduce someone that I've gotten to know very well, a friend, but also a very educated historian, philanthropist. She has her own nonprofit, as well as her own coaching business. At this time, we'd like to give a Live, Love, and Marry Wizerr welcome to Dr. Holly Fisher-Hickman.
Hey, y'all. Good evening. Good evening.
Let's bring Hayden on too.
Good evening. Yeah, and our co-host Hayden. Come on, Hayden. There's a couple makeup for the night.
You can get one too. You can get one too.
Yes. Holly, thank you so much for being here. As Lorraine said, that conversation that night, the Passport Brothers, was a nice fiery one, but it was definitely educational. For those of us, I've been out the dating game for a long time. So some things I had to go research before we even met that night, because I just thought, I saw little clips, little reels where the women who were married to these Passport Brothers have been responding or kind of, telling us as a married woman, why we got your man sort of deal. So it was very informative. We got that conversation going, and it really brought us to the point that people are looking at the things that are happening now on the surface, but we know this goes deeper. This goes always back to slavery on why Black women had to become who they deem now as masculine women, for being ambitions or acquiring the most wealth or acquiring education. And unfortunately, in some cases, having to be the head of household, not necessarily by choice. And so knowing that the woman you are, how educated you are and beautiful spirited you are, I said, we need to bring in Dr. Holly, because she studied this thing. She can speak to our culture in general, to who we are as a people, but the history of kind of how we've gotten this way, and kind of help to break some of the myths and stereotypes that are out there. So what we first like to have you do is just introduce yourself in your own way to our audience, so they get to know you as well as, well, maybe not as well as I know you, but a little bit before we start diving into the conversation.
Well, I want to thank you so much for this opportunity, and good evening, everyone. So very briefly, I am the out of the box type of historian and coach. So if you were on my social media, I would say I am the pro-marital covenant visionary coach, Coach Dr. Holly, where I believe in the marital covenant. And then if you were to speak to me at a museum, I would say I'm the historian of African American history, public history, community studies. And I love talking about and teaching our history. And if you walked into my classroom, I would say I love history. And you will too by the time I finish with you. So it depends on where you're meeting me and where we are. But overall, I am a woman that loves history because it explains so many things about myself personally, and then gives me the opportunity to then bring in everybody else to start understanding their personal narratives. I've been on this quest now, going back to teaching. Y'all pray for the sister, because they different. But I had to couch it in a way in which our young people could understand that history is being made every day. It's called your personal narrative. And there are things in your background, in your family pathology, that dates way far beyond grandmother and grandfather and whomever you may call the elder in your family. I am that person that likes to intertwine the two, and then we just add on in every little thing. So I'm a bit of a chameleon. I like to touch and grab and do things all over the place. So that's who I am, just in a nutshell.
Well, that is awesome. And I can testify that she is that out of the box. Do not try to box Holly in. You would not have her figured out. No way, no how, but big ball of love. I will tell you that. And so, Holly, again, getting to this conversation of the myth of masculine Black women, can you kind of just share with us from your historical viewpoint, kind of where some of this may have come from and why we've had to become, in a form of sense, this masculine woman, or actually some would say being more of the patriarch than the patriarch himself is in today's society?
So I thought about it and I started mulling it over. And I don't want to present this as if this is a class, but I wanted to go back to our roots. So many of us believe that slavery is our roots. It's not necessarily so. So we're going back to West Africa. West Africa societies are primarily matrilineal. That means the succession of the line for leadership comes through the woman, not necessarily the man. So that's the first part. So women in West African societies are recognized for leadership, or at least bearing the brunt of carrying out the succession line. One particular example, and I'm moving ahead of myself historically and chronologically, but there was a queen in West Africa in the 17th century, 1600s, for those of you who are not clear. So I'll just do this. When I say 17th century, I'm talking about 1600s. If I say 18th century, I'm talking about 1700s. So you don't get mixed up, because everybody goes, what? That doesn't make sense. I don't have time to explain that. But in the 17th century, now you're having Portuguese nation has been in the African continent on the western coast since the 1400s, 15th century. She now understands, this is Queen Anne Zinga. She now is understanding that in order to get a piece of the pie that's already been taken, she has to get into the game. So as the queen, she now starts negotiating with Portuguese viceroys, well, that's a Spanish term, but Portuguese, lack of a better word, ambassadors, to say, hey, if you want some of my folk, or even the folk that I'm warring with, you're going to have to trade with me. So she automatically puts herself in the mix. So that's one example. So when we're talking about masculinity, there's a kind of want to shift the term, because the term is not always being mannish or taking on the role of a man.
Yeah.
It's now in the contemporary form, and I have to read from this because this is new to me, because what I did was I compared the definition for masculinity from a 1962 dictionary to a contemporary. So contemporarily,
Come on,
masculinity is now attributing those things that are appropriate for boys and men in a given society, but is constructed and defined socially, historically, politically, rather than being biologically. So now what we're seeing is masculine takes on shapes that are socially constructed based on the socialization in the society that you're in. So it doesn't always mean I'm going to emasculate our men. What it means is, at certain points in time, if I have to take over whatever that looks like, I am going to do so for the betterment of the whole society or my whole community, not just my household. So we have to reconstruct and reframe this whole term. So that's the first part.
Yeah.
But now as you're moving forward, so going back before Queen Zinga, you now have what is called slave castles or forts being built by Portuguese, the British, the Dutch, Swedish. Most people don't think about Sweden was in the slave trade. It was in the slave trade. Most of the European powers, not most, all of them, let's just be real, were in the slave trade in some form of fashion. Along the coast of the western coast of Africa, they are building these forts, which, if you ever get a chance, off the coast of Dakar, Senegal, is one of the slave forts called Gore Island. And I've had the opportunity to go. So the fort, by any means of stretch of imagination, is not this humongous building that we would think of as a fort. It does not look like a Pentagon. So I don't want you to think it's this humongous thing. It is a 2-story building, but the 2-story building has tunnels and cells where they separate by gender. And why am I explaining this? Because in a cell where you're with different cultural groups, you now have to take on a mantra of how you're going to depend on yourself, figure out how you're going to depend on somebody else whom you don't know, or your cultural group was warring against them as well. How do you now jive and interact with them? So you're separated by culture, by language, by name, by religion, region. And all of these different factors are now having to play in how I am going to fare. How am I going to survive?
Yeah, I was
So
in survival mode.
So you automatically have this idea that I'm not going to be masculine. I'm going to do what I need to do in order to perpetuate survival and then eventually thrive. And now the thrive will look different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because on Goree Island, it is always called, and all of the slave castles or forts have this thing called the door of no return. And as
Yeah.
I was explaining to my students, once they get to the door, because the slave ship has now made its dock at that fort, there is a door that if you look down, there are rocks and this the Atlantic Ocean. You look forward, is a plank that leads right into the ship. You now have to figure out what you're going to do to survive or thrive in that environment.
Wow.
And before we even get to Middle Passage, upon getting on the boat or those different slave ships that were supposed to be built according to how much cargo, because we were considered cargo by that time, women started their own insurrections. By and large, mutinies that happened on the Middle Passage ships were done by us. So this whole idea of masculinity has to be reshaped, because we then take on forms that would be considered appropriate for men and boys, which is to lead a violent insurrection, galvanize people to support what you want to do, and then take over an area of the ship, if not the whole ship. And a lot of times the thriving what those women did was to go overboard rather than remain enslaved. So it has to take on different textures and different meanings and different historical periods. So it's not just one and done kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that starts it. So now we're now in the Middle Passage. You already know that you're chained head to foot, women and men. It's not co-ed. So the men are chained with the men and the women are chained with the women. But again, now you're having to see where women are having to take on different types of roles that they may not have seen, or if they saw it in a different venue or in a different medium. So that may have meant that if a cultural tribe was where the men stayed and the women hunted, does that make the women masculine? Did that emasculate the men? Or you had different regards where other cultural groups would do the more Americanized or traditional view. The woman stayed home and the men went out. But then there are so many give and takes of rites of passage where women would dictate to men how they were supposed to hunt, where they were supposed to hunt, what they were supposed to bring home. So it depends. And then moving now into various periods of U.S. history, and I don't want to bore, but I'm just picking out different instances where it would stand out. So when you have now skirmishes between different European countries, I'm trying to center myself, so I'm not moving all the way to the, okay. Different skirmishes between different European powers, you now have women taking on the look of a man. Notice I said the look, not necessarily the role.
Okay, what is that?
So you had African women born in U.S. mainland disguising themselves as men to serve as soldiers,
Okay.
spies. So even leading into the American Revolutionary War, you have some very prominent women that upon later investigation, they found out, oops, that he was a she. And it wasn't so much that she was trying to take over. She was maintaining protection of her community.
All right. All right.
And you see it throughout the Civil War. Of course, we know that Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth, to some degree, were spies for the North, for the Union. You had where Harriet Tubman, of course, led several hundreds of people to freedom. She carried a pistol.
Yes.
So she didn't emasculate. She just said, now, brother, if you're going to come with me, you're going to come. But if you're not, here's my keyword, keep your kabuns at home and be quiet. Let me go on and do my thing. So we have to see how this whole term changes that dictates with the historical period. So now after the Civil War with Reconstruction, here's the twist. The men who are now reuniting with their wives or girlfriends or what have you to reunite the family structure, which is always a West African cultural norm, they are now asking for the women, or not asking, they want the woman to stay home, take care of the homestead, tend to the babies. I don't necessarily need you in the field with me. I'm going to handle that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that as the leader of the household. And by and large, you'll see, if we look at different historical records, that the men are saying, hey, I need you to do this so I can so I can be the leader of my home while my wife takes care of and handles the home on the home front. Because in this peculiar system that we call the American slavery, there were so many different factors that tried to break the Black family. And I said tried with an emphasis, because we still have the idea of a nuclear family. We still have and people may call it traditional, but it's a West African thing. It's innate in us. We're communal. We're not supposed to be outside by ourselves tending to the children, just the woman and the child. That's not us. I like the comedian, and this is just a digression. Her name is Dolce Sloan. And in one of her little quips, she says, we're not meant to be in this cold area. We're meant to be in the sun with our feet in the sand and enjoying ourselves. So this northern climate in this northern hemisphere, she said, Western hemisphere, we're not supposed to be here. We're supposed to be back in Africa. So I want folk to understand that innately, this West African thing is still in us. So we still want to be and have maintained familial ties. So after Reconstruction, which was supposed to help us, we're not going to get on policies that are supposed to help and help other people.
We come back another time for them.
No, we're not going to talk about that and how they help Asian women and white women instead of us getting the equal buck. We're not going to talk about that. What we are going to talk about is this idea of womanhood. In the 1820s, 1830s, there was this push for the piety of womanhood, which were white women. And they were set on a pedestal. So, and it was done by class. It wasn't done by race. It was class structure. Black men, after Reconstruction, wanted women to understand that they're part of the womanhood. That's something that happened in our community where they were trying to reunite. So the idea of masculinity wasn't necessarily prevalent during that period. So we're now talking about 1860s, latter part of 1860s, moving into 1870s. With the disfranchisement of Black men got the right to vote, and then it was taken away slowly but surely through several different means. You now have a shifting, because whereas the woman may have had a chance to stay home for a few years, now the whole world has changed in the United States. It is now legal to lynch, not just physically, but politically and economically. By and large, the economic markets where our men were in and actually monopolized, white men said, you can't do it. We're coming in. So now you have the influx of European immigrants. You have Chinese immigrants coming in. Everybody's taking those jobs. And now the woman is having to create new means of economic structure. There's a historian by the name of Psyche Forsyth. Hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She talks about how women use the train and the railroad system for women who now have their own food industry businesses. Women would sell chicken wares, like the chicken boxes that we talk about in Baltimore, or down in DC when you go to the carryout and you get some mumble sauce. I'm sorry, I'm talking from DC now. So if you don't know mumble sauce, don't worry about it. It's on 14th Street. It's called From Yums. You know, if you can't get it anywhere else, the authentic one. Anyway, women now are going to the railroads and selling their food. Does that make them masculine? Because they're creating a new market for themselves economically.
Yeah, well, and I take it as too, the natural nurturing instinct in us says, I got to care for my family. You know, we talk about the mama bear too, but so from everything, first of all, that you've given us so much foundational information. It is awesome. Like, oh my goodness, to bring it, but from back there all the way up to now, to help us, get that, because again, unfortunately, in this world that we live in, a lot of times you have influencers who are only speaking to what they see now and never bring into history. And then unfortunately, there are people who believe the hype of just what that person is saying today. It's why so many people who people have bought into the Passports Brothers or the pink pill, the black pill, the red pill communities, because they're still looking at it from today, or either looking at it from their hurt or their rejection, and not from where all this stems from. And the systemic, to your point, the lynching was not just physical, but the systemic lynching that took place to make it so that I remember my grandmother saying, my granddad, he went to war, came back, couldn't get hired for anything. But she, therefore, was hired to go take care of other people's family. He did what other men did in his community. They stayed home, they drank them. They either drank, they gambled, or whatever. And unfortunately, ended up drinking himself to death, basically, until he was sick and died. But of course, also, that's another component that even in our communities, they put up liquor stores on every corner. They closed the libraries, but they open multiple liquor stores. And so again, when we're looking at the disenfranchisement or the way our Black families have been fragmented and what that has done to our communities, Black women have had to step up to ensure that we survived. That survival mode and that thriving mode. But what I like that you brought the point back to is that historically, when you go back to when we were still the queens and kings in West Africa, that's something we did. So that does not make you masculine, because you are using the sense and the talents God gave you to be ambitious, to acquire things, to, be, first of all, be inventive. I remember the song we said, I'm trying to make $1 out of 15 cents. Black women can do that. We can make $1 out of 15 cents. My grandma could scratch a pack of chicken to feed 12 of us, and she had 6 wings in there, because that's just what we've been doing since the beginning of time. And so I love that you brought that part and that you brought that around to us. Help us, because we do have some time restraints. Help us bring it to know how we can help women who are maybe. Go ahead.
Can I just interrupt for a second? I want to, since we only have the one man on here, like I wanted to get Hayden's perspective on what was just shared by Dr. Holly, and then go to your question, Onita, what you were about to say.
Definitely found it crazy interesting. And it points to what we all know, especially after World War II, where women, while men were off to war, women, Black and white, they were running the country. World War I and World War II, women started working. I think the disconnect comes from men's perception, and I'm not sure if I'm being gentle by saying it's men's perception, but it seems as though there is the boss babe movement. That the boss babe movement has told the most vocal women that they don't need men, and that behavior, while it might just be a small amount of women, now seems like that's what's spurring on these passport guys. You're not good enough for us. We can do it on our own. We just need you to have kids, and then you can take a hike, because we can pay our bills. We can buy. I saw a research study the other day about the biggest group buying homes by themselves is single Black women.
Yeah. So that's true.
They are. So I'm not saying they shouldn't feel like, they should be proud of those accomplishments. But when they get with a man, now what happens? We have two bosses.
So let's go back for a moment, because you mentioned World War II, and it's very prime that you would mention that. Most people don't realize that when you go to Asia and other parts of the world and finding women, that's your business. They were still under the colonial slave trade as well. But here's the difference. They were part of the absentee landlord system, which means their families were intact, or they had maroon cultures and communities. United States had it where it was most fragmented to be sold and splitting families. And you had the landowners there in front of your face every day, 365 days of the year. That's the difference. So when you talk about Philippines was under the Spanish rule. The Spanish rule had over 130 classifications racially. So they have already been groomed and socialized since the 15th century, 1400s, to then know how to survive within the construct of colonial slavery. Moving into the latter part of the 19th century with the Spanish-American War, where we finally, United States, takes over Philippines and Cuba from Spain. Doesn't make them more docile. It just makes them more attuned to what's happening and how they survive in their cultural landscape. Does not make them any more. So I need people to understand it. So when the GIs are going over to Asia in World War II, in Europe, Western Europe, Northern Europe, Southern Europe, or what have you, they're meeting women who have understood what occupation looks like and then have decided how to handle it. It is not just because she knows how to submit. That was her survival tactic, and she is still here. So now let's flip the mode. So now we're saying that these women are better because they know how to cater to the man. Well, that's been part of their survival strategy for centuries.
Yeah.
And it works. So the other aspect, when you're talking about boss to babe, because it kind of faded out, I couldn't hear everything. It is a compilation of a lot of different things historically and emotionally. So now when we're talking about the woman trying to get the bag and having her own home and then telling the man, I don't need you. Historically, everything about this country has told her that's where you're supposed to go. Because the underlying current is the breakdown of family. So after Reconstruction, if the man can't take care of me, because we don't have the land that we supposed to have, he has to go back out into the field. He doesn't want me to go out in the field, but we got these kids here that need to eat. What do I do? If not even looking at Reconstruction, post-Reconstruction, Jim Crow era, you have the rise of the HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. Oberlin was the first in the 1850s. Now you have the influx of immigrants coming in, taking over and doing various different jobs that normally we would do. And then being castigated into various different regions of the country. So now you're talking about at the beginning of the 20th century, the Great Migration, where we're moving from the South into the North. Now we're figuring out that some of our men are following with us. Some of our men are staying behind. What do? Then you have all the different influences in the North that you didn't necessarily see up close and personal in the South. South, we're talking about rural people. We're not talking about Atlanta the way we think of Atlanta today.
Yeah.
We're still talking about farms. We're still talking about plantations that was served by sharecroppers and tenant farmers. So folks have this funny idea of what the country was and what it was doing. And now we got boss babe. No, we've been conditioning this to come about for centuries and for years. So it is now the breakdown of historically the woman, economically, we're breaking down the woman and the man. So we haven't even gotten to mental health. We haven't even gotten about emotional health. We have not talked about religious movements, where the Baptist church was one of the foundations for families and leadership for women. At the same point when we're having certain denominations had one particular person, that they deemed a prophet, you now have periodicals where women are writing editorials talking about how to maintain your home using 1 Timothy and telling women in the periodical Star of Zion. Sarah Dudley Petty in the 19th century is the first woman to have her own blog where she's now blog. It's not even a blog. It's an article. It's a column in the Star of Zion. She's telling women now, this is what you need to do to take care of your home. This is a highly educated, light-skinned woman whose husband is the bishop of the AME Zion Church, Charles Petty. So she's following in this role of taking care of home, but that does not necessarily make her masculine or mannish. She was simply following the construct of her period in order to perpetuate and make sure that her community was intact. So again, we have to reshape how we use this word.
Yeah, so I so appreciate that. And even when I was looking back, trying to just research some more too, I found a publishing by Stephen Ruggles who was talking. It was older, because it's like you too. I was like, let's go look back at the other definitions, and he didn't really necessarily call it about the woman being masculine, but he was talking a lot more about the fragmented families and why women had to become the way they were. But in particular, he pointed out too just the way that white women were made to look like the feminine ideal of what we're supposed to look like, dress and everything. So even You know, we even us, our hair being kinky was not considered to be feminine enough. You know, the way we looked. I mean, again, like you said, Black women were coming from out of the field, so they were just as muscular as the man beside them. But how society painted a picture of what femininity looked like or was supposed to look like did not even equate to what we naturally look like because of the jobs we did. But to your point, Holly, like you said, let's reshape this word masculinity to educate us. What should we be saying, or how should people phrase it, men and women who have now deemed this woman not just the boss babe? Because again, I feel like all of us women on here right now are boss babes because we know what we're doing, we have our purpose, we're thriving in them, and we are ambitious about what purpose God has placed in us. But what's another way that we can rephrase it or kind of teach people to say, to be inclusive and to actually empower these women, the ones who are out here striving and trying to thrive, who are here, it's in survival mode and they're doing what they've had to do based on where we've come from. And they're not actually out there emasculated men. They're women who are be able to do this, and they want men, they want companionship, but then sometimes just because of how successful they are too, the men don't even come up to them. They don't give them
I want you to yes, that's a very important question, because and also
and is it fair? Is it fair?
Huh?
And is it fair? Is that fair that we want women to go out there and be bosses and come home and take care of some guy? At the same time,
go
is that a fair ask?
Dr. Holly.
So it's different ways to answer this. So I'm gonna start it off with this, and I'm gonna be very transparent. Onita knows how I do. In the midst of my marriage, I was in marital strife, and one of the things I had an older friend to tell me was, "Do you allow your husband to talk?" Well, my husband's deceased at this moment, so now I can talk about him. Anyhow. She said, and respectfully.
Yeah.
My older friend said, "Do you allow your husband to talk? Because you just run over folk when you get in your zone. You just go." And I was like, "I'm sorry. Are you coming for me? What's happening here?" And then I had to stop and think, because my husband he was a deliberate speaker, and what I mean was, he wasn't one of the men that just wanted to hear himself talk. Mm-hmm. He didn't say anything unless he had something to say. You know what I mean? It had to be of substance, but he would take his time. And I'm like, look, I'm from the industry of teaching. So everything had to be like this. I was like, yo, man, what we talking about? What's going on? And he would take his time. And then she said, when you understand the beauty of who you are, you let him take his time and let him talk. Whew. And I said, oh. So in the process of the marital strife and the reconciliation, I found myself being quiet, finding beauty in me, and letting him talk. And after a while, one day he said, "I got a whole sentence out, and you didn't interrupt me. You didn't say anything." and he had a smile on his face, which meant I was part of the healing process. I think as women, when we start understanding the beauty of who we are and how we are made, it allows for us to be a healing force. So for instance, if we look at Proverbs 31, those of you who are faith believers in the Bible, reading and professed folk, Proverbs 31, I forget the actual verse, but bear with me. One of the earlier verses says that the man trusts his woman and he finds safety in her.
Come on.
Once you understand, women, the beauty that you hold, it's something awesome when a man can come to you and you have his heart in your hand and you're not going to mishandle it because you understand the beauty that you hold. So that's the first part.
Yes.
The other part is understanding how socially constructed systems consistently break down your home. And then how to negate all of that. Because if I understand that my husband or my male friend, my boo thing, however you want to couch it, other than calling somebody wifey, either you're a wife or not, that's a whole nother topic. But once you understand what he has to deal with out in the world, and what you deal with in the world, when you come home, you need something that goes, oh, and you find that space.
Yes.
Thank you. So you have to understand that this world is not your home, and it's not geared for you to be comfortable. But what is supposed to be comfortable is those confines, that inner working between the two of you coming together and saying, how can I, watch this, serve you, and in turn, you what? Serve me.
Yes. Yes.
So we have refuge.
Yes.
So first we have beauty in ourselves, ladies, finding beauty in ourselves, and then creating that refuge. So that's 2 points, because you understand what the world and what this country is trying to do. Thirdly, and this is a deeper point, spiritually, you know that we are fighting against principalities. So you're not barking at that man, you're barking at that demon.
Yeah.
So you need to tell that demon and call it by its rightful name. You need to get going. Because as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. So brother man, come on here so I can fix you your steak. I'll cut it up, or you cut it up, or you, however which way y'all want to do it, that works with you, where both of you are feeling safe and groovy and nice, and it's wonderful in your bubble.
Hello.
We have to understand different fronts and how to do it, and how to do it consistently.
Yes.
And even when you mad, because you know, when my husband was alive, sometimes I would take the remote, like if I could just push this button. And now I wish I could push him. But the idea is always remember, you are each other's safe spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have to be a healing force.
Yeah.
So we got to understand that this stuff that we're carrying, it's not even about the other person. We got to start taking care of this house. If I'm not well, out of the heart, the mouth speaks, out of the abundance. So if I'm not well in here, all kind of things are coming out of here. All kind of things are coming and flowing out. All kinds of things are coming through in my action. So then you have the passport guys talking about, I can't fool with y'all black women. Now I got to go over Philippines. Well, you don't understand. The Filipino women, when they get together, they talk just like the black women do.
Hello.
The Vietnamese women talk just like the black women do.
Yeah.
The Spanish women talk just like the black women do. Women talk like women.
Yeah.
If you hurt me, I'm going to figure out how to deal with it, and then I'm going to deal with you later. Across the board.
Renee,
That's
Renee,
I'm
you
sorry.
had your hand up.
No. So I want to just chime in, because I feel like I can just sit here quietly and just listen to all of this information that you're sharing, Dr. Holly. It's fantastic. It's a historical view, that I obviously have never heard before. But even like while you were describing, how the roles that women have played over the course of history, I'm seeing the boss babe, that I'm going to say masculine based on the way that we describe women today, right? When they take control, when they step into the leadership and stuff like that. From listening to the historical view that you shared, the information you shared, women have been doing that since the beginning of time. And the one thing that I'm thinking now is that, like with the Black woman, we have been undergoing this pressure. Hold on, let me get my thoughts together. I'm so sorry. I was thinking this like the whole time, but also trying to secure all the information. Yeah. I think I lost it. I mean, as far as like stepping into that role, we do it as needed. And what I was about to say is that there's always been this division with the family, right? There's always something trying to break the Black man and Black woman up to send us in going in different directions. And so now it's like the way that we are defining masculinity now, it's another, it's just another barrier. It's another coming, like a wedge coming between us to be able to see us in the truth of who we are. Because when it comes to a woman stepping up and taking the lead, when you think about moms who are running their household, the moms are saying, you know what, honey, we have an appointment. We need to be at the school for the PTA meeting. And oh, by the way, we need to do this and we need to do that. It's common, it's normal, and it's almost like a natural thing that we do. Yeah. Right. And so it's almost like that has been kind of we're being villainized for doing what comes natural, which is taking the lead when it is necessary. And we're not trying to overstep, anybody else. It's just we're women and we nurture. It's like you're talking about selling, the chicken boxes. Yes, we are doing it to make money, but the way the woman's mind is that I'm also taking care of you while I'm taking care of me. It's just like something that just doesn't stop with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that it's
So the other aspect of, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to just reference something that you said, Dr. Holly, just about really finding that balance between you can go out and make money and be ambitious and build your purpose and do that, but also being a refuge and a safe place and all of those things. Now, the reality is that can be difficult when you are not having someone who is appreciating that balance and that holistic person, because there are a lot of men who just want you to be the one thing. And if you're not, and this is kind of where the whole passport brother thing, it's like, I want you to be the one thing, which in essence is about serving them, which of course when that's mutual, that is very productive. And it's a refuge for everyone.
Yeah.
When it's just a servitude type of thing, then, and I'm not mad at anyone who maybe says they want a traditional family with a wife that stays home. I'm not mad at that. I mean, I'd marry you actually if you want me. I'm like, I can stay home for a little. I'm tired, yo. I'm tired. I can stay home for a couple of years and just cook for you. But I'm like, but I think that from our perspective, because there's been so much rhetoric and language around us being masculine, because I've heard things like that about myself as well and been accused of, other stuff too, because of my hair short and whatever. But it's almost like it's a defense mechanism now to be harder because to be soft is to be crushed.
Come on.
And so
you're leading into,
go.
I'm sorry, go on.
How are we managing? How are we telling the women that are watching, who will watch in the future, to, even if the world is saying whatever about you, it's a myth. How do you navigate being the person that God wants you to be holistically?
Oh, that's a very good question. Very good question, because I was reading another article and they used this acronym RBSS, and it's race-based sexual stereotypes. And a lot of times, because we haven't healed from sexual violence that has gone down our generations and in our families, then we take on the role of Mammy or Sapphire or Jezebel or the Thought now, the welfare queen. I think how do we manage and navigate that is, one, again, this is for the faith believer and even the non-believers. This is something that you have to think about. There has to be a recreation, a renewal of who you are. Yeah. So if that means I need to get to the root of how I carry my anger, that we know that depression is just rage turned inwardly. How I carry my identity or lack thereof. So we have to start believing in, one, a recreation or a renewal of who we are. Get back to that basic root. The other aspect is how to navigate this is, and this is easier said than done. Find, and I hate this word, find your tribe, but find your person. Find somebody who, at the end of the day, if you don't have a boo thing like I don't, but find someone that you can say, hey, I just need a hug. Because if you don't realize, people, just to be on a somewhat normal stance, you need 8 hugs a day.
A day, yes, a day.
And we're not talking about those, I used to call them grandmother hug, pats, on the back. And you need full frontal, let's hug. And I'm not talking about sexual. I'm saying there's something healing about another physical being coming towards your space and then hugging you. Do you know sometimes they can hug the mess out of you?
Yeah.
I want somebody
They
to hug
can
the mess
they
out of
can
me.
hug the yeah. And in the process when you're missing that. So for instance, I have a couple at my church. When my husband passed, I turned to her out of respect. I said, "Do you mind if your husband hugs me?" And I mean a husband hug. I'm not trying to, it's nothing sexual.
Mhm.
It's not like ooh kind of thing. I miss that husband hug. There's something different about a husband hug
Mhm.
as opposed to just a brother hugging you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And every now and then, if at the point when I'm at church and I walk by and he's like, what you doing? Come here. Come here. And there are times when I really needed that hug, and I'm like, if I hang on too long, then your wife's gonna say something. But I appreciate
Yeah.
the hug. So it's
Yeah.
you need that physical touch.
Yeah.
So if you can find your person, and at this point, look, female, male, hug.
Mhm.
There's something healing about touch.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I love
Because
that.
it also allows you to give as well.
Yes.
So you're not only releasing, but you're helping them to release. So that's the other way.
I love
Another
that.
way to navigate this thing is there are times when you need to be quiet and write down those root things that are in your system that just moves you the wrong way. And you need to have some serious talk about what's happening, whether it's to yourself, to God, or find somebody, or write it down. Because if you don't get it out, it's going to seep some kind of way out of you.
Mm-hmm.
What will look like an emasculation, what will look like I'm talking back to you, what will look like I'm being angry, what will look like I'm being aggressive rather than assertive, what will look like all these different negative things where the black man go, I can't talk to her because she da. Well, you don't know that I had a crazy boss, or I'm playing power dynamics with a white colleague who wants to showboat every time. You don't know because I'm not talking to you about this. I'm just going, that girl makes me so mad. Well, what girl? Because men are not going to get, not most. I'm going to say most. They're not going to go, what girl? You mean the girl that da 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 da? They're just going to go, oh, okay. That girl, oh, okay. You got to find that person that's going to allow you to release it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Verbally or physically. Or even better yet, find something outside of your house, not cooking, and do some physical work.
Mm-hmm.
Go. They have a place here in where I'm staying. I was about to say where I was, where I'm where I'm staying, and then you can throw an axe. And I was like, oh, I need to go there.
Yeah.
It's better than dark. You got the full axe and you got the thing, and you need the movement where your whole body is in motion to release that stuff. So there's so many different ways. And here's the funny part: it goes right back to the 8 laws or 7 laws of health: nutrition, sleep, meditation, getting outside, talking to people, some touch, something about God and this thing and being holistic.
Yeah.
He has some right stuff, he's all right.
He does.
He's all right.
Hayden,
Yes.
did you have some thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely have some thoughts. I think that those are good thoughts. I think part of it is that we, as in our community, the people that are raising these young men that want something different, unfortunately, are women that have gone through some stuff,
Yes.
and they are bosses, and they've taken on the masculine role because they had to. And it seems as if, and I'm looking at the guys, I'm seeing what they need, and I'm looking at their upbringing is so different from ours. And I'm from the Caribbean, and there's a thing about, I found out online about Caribbean men cheat, and Caribbean men expect all this stuff out of their women, the cooking, the cleaning. I remember when I was first married, and my wife washed my clothes, and I was like, I washed your clothes, and I was like, because my mother taught me how to do my own clothes, and my father. Now I would say this: laundry was the only thing in our house that I don't remember seeing my father did. He cooked, he baked, he cleaned, he made our lunches every day. And yet I never thought my mother was masculine. My mother is not masculine. She's very feminine. So
Hi, mommy.
somehow we in people's upbringings, they have messed this thing up. Whereas I mean in our household, my mother took those roles. I do dishes. I don't I'm not looking for a partner to wash my dishes, to fold my clothes. And I hear this a lot from the passport bros. They want servants that they can have.
Basically.
It seems like, I mean, I'm stereotyping them a bit, but I think that that's part of it. And they want a softer tone, you know, as far as they don't want the challenge of an equal intellectually. I'm stereotyping big time.
Yeah, very broad.
So I think that they want to run their home with a servant almost.
And I think that there are a lot of them who may have not have those negative ways of thinking. There are some who are just like that. They want someone who just does what they say. And I was talking to one of my friends, and she's from Brazil, but she is in no way submissive. She is willing to submit, but she's not submissive. I think that's true of all of us. I'm willing to submit as God leads, but I'm not submissive in the way that we think about that. She was telling me about this guy she was talking to, and like online, and he was saying that women need to not give instructions or their opinions. And she's like, what do you mean by that? And he said, so for example, if I'm going to buy a house, we're married and I decide to buy a house, then I don't need her opinion about that. She's like, you're going to buy a whole house and I don't get to say anything about that. And I said, that just blows my mind that people still think like that.
Right.
It's so utterly ridiculous that you just can't, it's like you can't even entertain these people. And there are people like that in that community, but not everyone is like but they want someone who stays home, who takes care of the house, who takes care of the kids. I'm not mad at that. But what I am mad at is men who think, I want a woman who stays home, who comes home, takes care of the kids, takes care of the house, cleans this, cooks that. I'm like, okay, well, now that's unbalanced.
Yeah.
You're asking me to be out making money, but then you're asking me to come back and do a different role, and you're not doing the same thing. And now I got a problem.
So then you have to get to the healing root. That's a man that does not have any authority where he is at his workplace. Nobody is listening to him. No one is asking him for his own opinion or his thoughts, or he's limited in his thoughts because he's so wound up to try to make some money that when he does get home, his idea of submission is just total surrender, which is totally different than submission.
Yeah.
When my husband was alive and we were kicking it and we were doing it as a partnership, baby, he could say, give me this bill. Here, sir, gladly. Here you go. And we can talk about it all day long, but as long as you do it, so be it. Whatever. So again, we have to look at roots and what's happening. It's not enough to say a woman is being masculine. We have to understand why or what context is she being, or we have to understand why this man may feel like he's being emasculated because he told the woman, I want you to stay home. And then she still has the nerve, quote unquote, to say, I don't believe this, or I don't like that, or whatever the case may be. Because I remember before I got married, my husband said, I would love for you to stay home. I was like, I'm sorry, what are we talking about? Because I was thinking, here I am, I have a graduate degree, I'm trying to do this, that, and the other. And then after a while, I was like, oh, so let me understand. If I stay home, that means you're doing the stuff outside, right? The work and dealing with the people outside and the agency and the thing and the thing. Shh. Make your money, man. I'm okay. That means I can do what I need to do in my field when you're at work. And then, by the time you get home, you just want da-da-da. I got you. It's
Got you,
early kind of deal. Woo, that's not my circadian rhythm. But even, and I make it funny. But this idea is, if you start really knowing who you are, and you start sharing that instead of projecting what you want, what you think people want to see, you may find that some women will go, "You want me to stay home, and you handle all that stuff that's out there? I got you."
Yeah.
And you not allow me, but I have the flexibility to do things within my wheelhouse to make us happy and make me happy. You got it.
Yeah.
No questions asked here. As long as the bills are paid, the lights are on, the water runs, and the house is okay. Have at it.
I'm on that.
Have at it, because I can be the boss babe in the house.
Hello.
Amen. Amen.
And I would say too, one of the things I've seen, and I wish I knew the group. I can't remember, but I always see their reels, parts of their clips on Instagram. But there's a panel of people. They're always out. They're in person, and they always have these huge crowds of people where they're asking these different type of dating questions or whatever. But one in particularly, this one clip kept getting reshared and reshared and reshared, and by several of my friends too that are Christian women, where the lady said, "Black women are tired." She said, "We're tired and we're emotionally and physically exhausted because we're having to do it all." And she was saying, being the breadwinner, taking care of the kids, going to all the practices, working, cooking, cleaning, and all these things. And I was able to identify with her when I was also at home. So when I was not working and I was at home, which my husband still says I was running a Fortune 500 company, because there's a lot to do with the kids in the house. I got the slack from the outside women who were working going, I couldn't, wish I was you, or that you must be nice. I did more work. Me leaving the house actually gave me a break. When I left the house to do work. You know what I'm saying? But then the flip side, when you have the woman, and I totally I understand what she says, but when she spoke, all of these women identified with her, and a lot of women kept resharing it when she said how exhausted we were. And then they were playing clips too of Minister Farrakhan many years ago and saying the Black woman is the most unprotected woman there is in the world.
Absolutely.
And I have to say, Harley, you spoke to this somewhat too, though, about the sexual trauma, but also about the dynamics of the family, single parent homes. Dr. John Trusty many years ago came to our church at Ephesus and spoke about just how there were two parents in the home. There were like 80% in the Black home. There were two parents in the home in the 1960s. And then you came up to like the early 2000s, and the number was like only maybe 40% or 30%. Yeah, it was bad. And so looking at even just that dynamic where you're having women being raised up, and women and men raised in a single parent home. So they've only had a vision of one way to do it. So it's hard to even see past that vision. You've also had people growing up in homes where they were used to being let down, or not having people show up for them, not having a security place, or being able to rely on people. So you have some women and men, but you have these women out here too, that their part of their ambition is, I have to do it because nobody else will do it for me. And you have some of these women who have gone into marriages or their relationships within marriages with this same mentality, that they're in a marriage and still not healed from the childhood of letting go and then letting the man in. And so going back to your point, the main point I was saying all that is we have to do the work of being healed, because even if we were made to be in relationship, to be in community, not to be in isolation by ourselves. So if you ever plan on being in relationship with somebody, you're going to have to do some work on getting healed so that you even can receive this person when they come. Because I have friends of mine who they're in marriages, but not able to even let the man do some of those things he wants to do. Oh, to your point, they're not be safe for him, and vice versa, be safe. So then it still perpetuates this mentality. The man may not say she's been masculine, but he may say she's always trying to run things, or she's always trying to wear the pants. Right? Because of the lack of healing.
Yeah.
Right. So the other idea is people can evolve. So I was, when I was married, I was one of those older persons that got married. I wasn't in my 20s and 30s and I was set in my in my 40s. And I used to tease myself and another girlfriend who got married in their 40s. And I was like, when your husband does this, does that bother you? She go, yes, girl. And when my husband does that, and so we would go back and forth. And then finally, one of my older friends said, if you don't let that man be himself, stop telling him everything. And she goes, why do you do that? And I said, you know what? Because I've been in the classroom teaching so long where I've had to give detailed instructions to every little person.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't even dawn on me that this is a big grown man. You don't have to tell him how to drive. You don't have to tell him how to do da-da-da. Because one day when my husband turned, he looked at me, he says, I do know how to tie my own shoes. And I stopped and I said, what? He said, I know how to tie my own shoes. And to know him, you would know that he was getting to a bigger point.
Yeah.
He said, I'm not one of your kids in your classroom.
Mm-hmm.
I'm your husband. And I'm a man. And I would go, ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Okay. So he was teaching me in his own special way. Get yourself together. You don't have to do the step by step with me. I know you. And allow me to show you that I know you. Mm-hmm. So there's evolvement. So in certain points of our marriage, he would go, you're not in the classroom. And I'd stop and go, oh, did I do such and such? He was like, yeah, you did. And I go, you know what? I'm so sorry. Or whatever the case may be, we have to allow each other to make the mistakes to evolve, because I had been so much in my zone, I didn't even realize it. Mm-hmm. Because if I did it with my girlfriends, we'd laugh it off and go, girl, get yourself together. Who are you talking to? But with a man, you got to be very different, because, and this is no denigration of a man, they're fragile. And why wouldn't they be? A Black man in America has dealt with physical violence, economic violence, political violence. Then the home front has been disrupted. His workplace is disrupted. His very physical environment is disrupted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's enough, and if we start taking into consideration all the stuff that we're carrying, then sometimes you just need the man to go, I know how to tie my shoe. I know how to do that. you know that, right? Mm-hmm. And we have to stop. And then the same thing with men. They have to know that we're tired of holding the brunt of, because I know I used to say this early on in our marriage. I would go, I have washed the dishes, cleaned the floors, fixed the food, and you sit up here watching TV. What's up? What's up? And I saw a clip on social media the other day where this Black man said, I don't want my wife to be a single married woman.
Yes, I saw that.
And I'm in love with you already. And by the time my husband understood it, unfortunately, he wasn't physically able to do the help. But when he could, if he saw me struggle with a bag, he said, give me the bag. And he would grab the bag. There's this thing of actually seeing the struggle and then saying, I love you so much, I don't want you to struggle.
Yes, come
even
on.
If it just picking up the grocery bag.
Come
even
on.
If it means that. Even if it means, let me help you open the door because I see you got all this stuff. Or, sometimes you get so full in your head, you walk out and you go to the door and you're like, what did I go to the door for? What was I doing? Yeah. And my husband used to go, just stop and pause. What were you thinking before you came out here?
Yes.
You don't want to see the other person struggle. It's this thing of servant leadership. It's this thing of being thoughtful. It's this thing of being intentional. It's this thing of saying, let me treat you the way I would want to be treated. So we ain't got to worry about these passport foolishness and all that other stuff. It's women are women.
That's right.
I'm going to tell you, there's a comedian, his last name escapes me, but he is a biracial person. His mother is South Korean and his father is Black.
Yeah, I think it's a Michael Gill. I think
portrays his mother. Yeah, I mean, if you didn't know that she was Korean, you think she was a Southern Black woman that kept her household in check.
That's right.
So I need the brothers to understand, women are women, and they're gonna say the same stuff the Black women will. They just don't say it in front of your face. So Keep going overseas if you want to, but you're gonna find, because we're everywhere. We are everywhere. I need you to understand, Black folk, that West African thing, East African thing, we are everywhere. We were explorers with all the other explorers. So you may have the most Black Filipino woman ever in life. So you might as well stay right here.
I love that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, I do think that yeah, we tired, and I agree that we're gonna bring this to a close. We could talk all day, but we can't. So we would love to, but I do think that if men, not just people, if men would look behind the veil, they would see a whole lot of women who are tired of carrying some of the weight, some of the mantle that we've had to carry. And they would stop seeing it as masculine versus someone who I can partner with. We can actually make some stuff happen, because I know that she knows how to carry weight. Now I can take some of that weight off her. She can be free to even do more with this versus having to do everything. When you have to do everything, it's hard to build. But taking that title, that label off of masculine, and just saying this is someone who did what she needed to do. Now I'm gonna help her carry that weight, and we'll carry that together. I know that I have, people have said that about me. I mean, even to the point of calling me a lesbian, but because of whatever.
That's a whole nother dynamic.
We bring you back for that one. But and the reality is that hurts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And being dismissed and being like, oh, well, you said this and that makes you masculine, or you did that, or you're able to, and men are intimidated by you, that whole thing, like my whole life. And that hurts, because I'm also soft and gentle and giving and loving, and all of those things. I can hold your secrets, I hold your heart. All of those things are me too. But when you just see this side and you don't even get it, you don't even take the time to see the rest. First of all, you miss out on something really good.
Yeah.
But you also break down. That impacts not just me, because there are other women that you're also passing by. And now you're saying, oh, well, and I'm not mad at any white women or whatever. I'm just saying, I mean, I'm mad at some of them probably, but but I'm saying now you want to go. Now we start going out of the culture, the race, because those women are better, or these women are better, or those. And it's just like, just take a moment to see what we're asking and what we need. And you'll find that we have the same heart, we have the same love to give, and we have the same peace to bring that other women do.
Can I also?
Yes, go ahead, Renee.
Because I also
last comment, then I'll let Hayden, and then Dr. Holly, and then Onita will close us out.
Mm-hmm. No, I was just gonna say, like she was just saying, loving so much that you almost like love the struggle out of somebody. You help to soften them up when you do that, So again, it's not fun. It doesn't feel good to be cast aside, because you are seeing a woman who is having to basically fight for her life. She's having to struggle to make everything happen. But yeah, if one of those men was brave enough and bold enough and to get with her and to look behind the veil, see what load she's carrying. Like, just because she can doesn't mean she should. And if you're in that partnership, come on in, help take some of that load off of her. And you're going to see that Black women are not at all as hard as people try to paint us out to be.
Yeah, that's actually where I was going to go, because let's say that this is all true. How do they know? Because they don't believe that right now. So we're at an impasse. These guys say you guys have said some really nice stuff, it seems like the culture is saying something differently. So what has to happen to bridge this divide?
Is that we need not be led by the culture, by our own own individuality and the intellect that we have to design our own lives, to carry ourselves a certain way, and to be in partnership with people who are in line with what we're trying to do.
Yes.
That's so true.
Dr. Holly, your closing remarks?
Oh, wow. I was just thinking, there is strength in a communal spirit where vulnerability really showcases your strength. And what I mean is, there is something to saying exactly how you feel, finding the beauty of it, not to tear someone down, but for the opportunity to look deeper than what they may present to you. And in that regard, we give space for whether or not the woman or the man has been sexually traumatized, or whether or not that has been passed down through generations. We give healing space to fragmentation and dysfunction. We give healing space to lack of affection and love. I think when we're able to be vulnerable, all these different stereotypes, whether we're talking about man being a sapphire and a Jezebel, or the emasculated man, or the effeminate man, or the now you have all these different terms with this cisgender, metro, and this, that, and the others that are saying the man and the woman. Once we start having a communal spirit saying, I want what's best for you, and in turn have a vested interest in what's best for me, these socially constructed forms and terminologies that are used as barriers would not have so much pronounced high regard, I think, in our communities. If we have this communal spirit saying, I want to do what's best for you. How can I help you today?
Yeah.
And in turn, the other person says, how can I help you today? And really mean it, not have an ulterior motive, not trying to emotionally manipulate someone, but genuinely say, out of the abundance of my heart, hear me. And it be truthful, it's pure, it's kind, and it's transparent. I think when we get to that point, we don't have to worry about whether or not this woman is masculine or mannish, or this man is effeminate or whatever. It is, are you for me? It's the the old song, is you is, or is you ain't my man. My mom used to sing that all the time. The good old church going woman, she would sing that song all the time. Is you is, or is you ain't. Because once I know who you are, I know how to then navigate around you. And if you're not for me, then you're not for me. That means I pray for you in the distance, and I keep it moving, and still want the best for you.
Yes.
That's right. That's right. Wow. Well, thank you so much, guys, for all of the information shared. Dr. Holly, we thank you so much for being here with today, educating us, informing us, planting seeds. So we all want to go out and do some more researching. Like, oh my goodness, people got real hype about the Woman King movie and looking at those female soldiers. This is on a whole nother level when we go back to our ancestral foundation and what the women leadership looked like back then. And so we thank you so much for being here today and for what you've shared. I'm quite sure we've had a lot of comments in the chat. I know they're happy too and hype. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Lorraine to close us out for today.
Well, I'd like to add my thanks as well to Dr. Holly and Hayden. Always, Hayden's going to be back more. We got Dr. Holly's website here. She does coaching, individual and group coaching. She has seminars and courses, and she also has some books. I think one's coming out, one is already out. You want to mention
one is coming out?
One is coming out. Okay. If you want to mention, do you have a name for that, or we'll just keep you updated if you get on her website and her mailing list?
No, I can tell you the title.
Go ahead.
It is Battle of Bread. There is a treasure you are carrying.
Okay. I love that. And so follow her, and if you need to do some healing, I know Onita has spent some good time with Dr. Holly. She mentions her a lot, and she's helped her a lot, and she's been able to kind of unearth a lot of things and deal with things. So if that's what you need, reach out to her, faithinmovement.com. That link is there. Thank you again. And we just want to take that off. Just remind you, if you haven't seen the book or don't have the book, get the book, Pray It Forward for Women Who Choose to Fight on Their Knees. And then every morning we have Pray It Forward Live. That should be in the comments as well. Oh, that is in the comments. You can link on this YouTube channel right here that you're watching. We do a daily devotional. It's about 15 minutes. And we just are given our charge for the future, for the day, as we are praying for a man in our life. So we would love for you to join us. We also have a Facebook community around that, Pray It Forward Live. So if you want to be part of that community, we're 83 women strong right now. Come on, y'all. Just since January 1st. That's incredible. And so we would love to have you. If you want to sow into the ministry, that link is also in there. PayPal me, or you can Cash App. We're trying to do some new things, and we recorded together a couple of weeks ago. We'd like to do that more. So we need to travel to be there. So, or they travel here to Florida. So if you want to sow into the ministry, you can do that as well. I also speak. If you would like to book me for an event, do seminars, retreats, I just preached at church last week. I'll be preaching again this week. So if you want to do that, we would love to have you. So we appreciate all of you who have been here with us in the comments. Thank you so much. We love you. We appreciate you. Please share this. Get this information out to other people so that they can join and subscribe. And I will say thank you to my wonderful host and guest. We love and appreciate you all. So until next time, make choices that will help you live, love, and marry wiser. God bless you.